test my mic to see if I'm loud. Is this good?
Yeah.
Cool. Firstly, thank you so much for coming in. This is our first Build Tech Connect event. And thanks for choosing us over Beyonce. Just gonna play one down the road. So the aim for this event was actually to gather all the stakeholders that are part of the built environment. That's your owners, your contractors, architects, consultants, design consultants, venture capitalists, tech providers. That's pretty much everyone. And we wanted to do this to build a community. We always see in New York you have a lot of events happening, specifically for construction as well. So we wanted to do something similar like that in here. We obviously see a lot of events for consumer tech, but not much for construction. And that's what we wanted to do. And I have an awesome panelist lined up for you guys today. I am Siddhant Mehta, your host and moderator for today. We're gonna keep it fun, get insightful. I try to steer the conversation, but we have awesome subject matter experts who are in the trenches of AI pretty much every day. So we're gonna get some insights from them. And before we actually start with our panelists' introduction, I wanted to actually share some insights about construction. And some of the statistics you might have actually seen. Jesus, but that thanks, JC. So the first step is design. As per an article from Autodesk and FMI, 30% of the design time is spent on rework and coordination issues. Are there any architects in the house? Or dealing with the architect? I'm pretty sure you would agree with that. And when it comes to a big mega project, that time accounts a lot. It's in years. Everyone knows construction is a $12 trillion industry, but very few of us know that it ranks 21 out of 22 places to adopt tech. So the question is, why are we slow to adopt tech? And we'll try to unpack some of those conversations today. Next up is building operations. Up to 95% of the building data is lost when you hand over the projects. I've been part of a closeout for a $350 million job, and trust me, I still get calls. So a lot of the information is lost during this process, and the question is, how do we manage that process? How can owners, developers, or the operators come on the same page as contractors in terms of finding this information? Next up, talent gap. Construction needs almost 450,000 new workers to meet the demand in 2025. And that gap is increasing. And I always like to say it's not a labor shortage, it's a skilled labor shortage. So how do we meet that demand? And the last one is kind of interesting. Just in quarter one of 2025, venture capital investments in construction rose up to $1 billion. That is a 46% year-on-year growth. So you read the stats, and this leads to two big questions: the what and the why. Why is this happening, and what can we do to mitigate it? With that, I would like to introduce our awesome panel, starting with Sandeep.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Sandeep, CEO and co-founder of Cove. We're a full-service AI-powered architecture firm, and just to put it in context, we're the world's first and only AI-powered architectural services firm. We've spent $25 million over the last 2 years to build our incredible AI that allows us to do architecture better, faster, and more insightful than anyone in this whole wide world. We pair it with our extremely experienced licensed architects on team to make sure that buildings that we deliver are higher profit, better quality, and look amazing. So more than anything, you guys chose to be here on a Thursday evening. Let's have a good time.
Well, yeah, first, it sounds like you won't be the last with that much success. My name is Bryan. I am the founder of Undaunted. We're a robotics security company. We started right at this building right here. Previously, they had 2 full-time security guards costing $400,000 a year. People would still break into that building on a daily basis. So what we do, we set up a perimeter camera system. We put a dog in a doghouse in the property. When somebody trips over onto a construction site and they're not supposed to be there, our team verifies that they're not supposed to be there, deploys the dog where they can have two-way audio and communicate with them, So the first time we did it, person beelined out into a dumpster and then sprinted off in under 90 seconds, which is better than what was there before. So the security guards aren't able to respond because of insurance, and they have to call the police, and they have guns drawn on unhoused people. So we provide better, more consistent security at half the price of traditional security.
And I'm gonna add one thing. Your dog doesn't breathe. It's a robot.
Yeah. What's the worst thing that could happen? They destroy the dog. Who cares?
It's not a living being, but it does look like a dog. My name's Michael Pink, founder and CEO of SmartPM Technologies. Just a little bit of background on myself. I spent my career studying construction data to help people manage with that data much better on the execution side. We saw a lot of opportunity in how to tap into very key data sets in construction and turn it into analytics that were very useful in managing risk and executing much better sooner before projects ended up in the ditch. So we do a full cycle analysis of really the scheduled data throughout all of construction to set it up for success, understand performance and risk throughout, and then even document the issues that would ultimately result in overruns and delays so that projects don't end up in court.
Thanks for the introductions. And one thing, if you would have noticed, all three of our panelists actually serve different phases of the project life cycle. And that brings up a good question about how are your companies actually using AI, and what are some of the things, if you can give a real world example of how it has benefited the consumers.
I'm happy to kick it off. Well, just to put it out there, so a little bit of context on me. I'm a serial entrepreneur. My last business was a sustainability software used by almost every architect in the whole wide world. So we had about 70% adoption. And what I learned from having collaborated with so many architects in the world and seeing their workflow up close was that there is, to Sandeep, your point, the data that you showed, a lot of inefficiency in the way that architects work. And when we created our AI-powered company, we made history last month by designing the world's first ever AI-designed data center. So what that meant for the client itself was significantly faster design timelines, which means significantly faster permits, because the sooner that we're done with the design and the actual construction drawing, the sooner we can go to permitting, the sooner we can go to permitting, the sooner we have a set and they can start the construction, the sooner they can start the construction, all of that money starts adding up, the sooner they can start getting to revenue. So just being able to get to revenue faster and speeding that up by not days, but weeks and months, that's a really big deal to our clients. Another project where we made history again by designing the world's first hospitality project that's AI driven. We were able to figure out more iterations to fit in more keys into the same floor plate so they could have more revenue. So it's examples like that and the quantification like that gets me so excited about what AI can do from just purely a design space.
Yeah, our AI use is, when you think about what a security guard would have to do on a site like that, like 99% of the time, nothing's happening. So that 1% of the time, they have to be ready, alert. It's a massive property. They got to be in the right place. And so what can you do with AI? You can do it first on the visualization. So you're going to more consistently using camera analytics that, 2 years ago cost hundreds of millions of dollars that open source communities have created and let us use. It's wild. It's free. It's awesome. So we're consistently able to catch things. We're consistently able to cover much larger areas. And then also, where we see this going is we're going to have multiple dogs across multiple sites. And so the navigation, the autonomy within the dogs, the other thing that we're focusing on, that's all AI-powered models. So somebody comes over one of these fences, our human guards can say, yep, we're going to go respond to that. They're going to deploy multiple dogs. You're going to enable them to do that and have a coordinated response. It's pretty wild in terms of what's possible and what's being unlocked. But I will say on for the AI front, I don't know how much our customers feel like they're adopting AI. when they're using us. I just feel like they're getting a better service. That's all they care about.
Thank you. We're using AI in a couple different ways. I look at it, in the world in which we live in today, I think a lot of people are used to seeing things like ChatGPT and what that does, is generally go through a bunch of information and organize it into some very succinct, coherent information that somebody can do something with. We are leveraging that type of technology. When we start talking about data analytics in construction, there's a huge variance of education and sophistication with what to do with that information. So the first thing we do is we assist in helping guide the user to really understand what is this data telling me and what do I need to do with it. We use large language model technology to do that. The other piece that we're leveraging in terms of AI is how do we learn from the data that we have. When you have, I think we now have probably 100,000 schedules in our system, different project types. We needed to first train AI. How do you put a framework around this data consistent with how construction really works? And the way in which we approached that was understanding trade flow. How do trades come in and how do they operate next to each other? And when do we see a problem that's mounting through a specific trade, and how do we course correct? Being able to layer in that different information on similar projects starts to guide the user of what worked and what doesn't work on similar types of projects that are sitting in our database, that then go into telling the user, given the situation you're in, here's the mechanisms that you need to do to successfully mitigate the impacts that have existed. The other way in which we're leveraging AI is now putting a framework around that schedule data. We're able to start to tap into PM systems and cost systems and start to merge the world together of understanding correspondence, cost, resources, and schedule all in one place. It's a very difficult thing to do at an organization, to systematize the way in which we are organizing and classifying our data. So we've leveraged AI to be able to do that, to start to gain deeper insight into construction performance.
I think the one common takeaway from this answers I found was data, insights, and efficiency. That's a common playground. But for someone who is on the field, be it a construction guy or someone who's an architect, I guess you are used to following a certain system, a certain process. Now you enter AI. How do you trust the insights? If I am sending something to the owner, how am I trusting that insight? So what are you guys' recommendation on how users should adopt or understand these features and build that trust with AI?
I mean, honestly, even from the last answer, what both of you guys said, right, and what Michael said and what Bryan, you said, is the thing that I take the closest is that it's the final outcome. It's the final thing that you see as a consumer or a user of a certain thing, right? Like when I go into ChatGPT and I'll do some deep research for something, it'll point me back to exactly where it's pulling the links from, right? Like I might ask it some super complicated question. As a user, I'm talking to it like it was a very, very hopefully smart human. And as a ChatGPT, it's coming back and saying, okay, this is what you ought to do. Here is why I pulled in that data. Here is the article that I referenced. Here is the book that I looked at. Here is the blog that I recommend. And I think that obviously helps build the confidence. For us, what we have done quite similarly is that obviously our architects interface with the AI that we've built and designed the buildings and deliver the drawings at the speed. But as a client, you're still getting the final permitted set from a licensed architect, which is what you were getting last year, which is what you were getting 10 years ago. You're not getting anything different. We still own the liability, as all architects do. We still stamp all drawings. So I don't know if that's relevant if there's humans in the mix. Now, if there was a place and time where United States and world said no longer drawings need to be stamped by architects, do whatever, I think that would be the wild, wild west. But I really think that there's the regulatory arms that are already set up to keep at least some professions in checks.
I'm sitting next to two really successful entrepreneurs. My previous company was not successful. It was a app for teens with ADHD that tried to teach them how to change their study habits for homework. And we failed. It was a great idea, conceptually I'd say, but like changing habits is very hard. And so the lesson I took from that is whatever I'm gonna do in my next company, if I have a chance to do it, I'm gonna make it exactly the same. I'm not gonna ask anyone to change anything. And so I actually ran back up against this recently with one of our clients. We had asked our superintendents on the site to use Slack. And they revolted. They were like, no way we're gonna use Slack. We're like, we have all this data plugged into Slack. You should use Slack. We're so much, anyways. So we couldn't ask them to even move that much. And I just think that, I will say that versus architecture or project management, what we're faced up against with security, like we're just providing, they have no data, right? Like what did your security guard do on your construction site last night? I don't know, but there's a missing golf cart. Real thing. Or there's 11 missing refrigerators. So it's real. Or it's copper that was stolen that delays a project by millions. Anyways, we're able to provide, here's the video, here's where the dog went, here's how many patrols you had, here's the incident response time, here is the outcome, here's everything that happened if there was a failure. Like one time there was a failure, we sent a message when we should have been a call. This is what happened. You're gonna get so much more documentation than you would ever get because of those background systems.
We took a different approach to our whole product. One of the first things we did was augmented analytics. So taking data you have with proven processes, giving some configuration to being able to do that, and then get the answers. Leaving the user there to determine what to do with that information. And as we've advanced forward, we've taken an approach to AI that's extremely thoughtful. And when I say thoughtful, it means it needs to be accurate. We're not going to trust it. Nobody's going to trust it if it's not accurate. So the approach that we take with that is to obviously give them some information that they can use and learn and build trust on just through regular analytical processes. But when we get into how to leverage AI, we want to make it very clear that there's a process here that we're doing to recommend things and not to just do things for you. We still allow the user to make the decision on whether or not they agree with the approach. Or if they want to follow through with the approach, we'll leverage AI to make it simple. For instance, when it comes to the data that we're analyzing, if we're recommending you put in certain logic ties or you mitigate certain things or you associate RFIs to certain activities so that we can understand prioritization, we don't just say this belongs here and you need to do that and it's done. We say, this is what we recommend, do you approve and would you like us to move forward? So almost treating it as the sidekick that it's best at, and still allowing the user to be in the driver's seat on making those decisions. But once they do make those decisions, we allow the AI to then go quickly accomplish the things that they would like it to accomplish through those recommendations. And I think I agree wholeheartedly that in this age of AI, it's going to take some time to build that trust. So you've got to enable people to trust it through doing, but also have the control to essentially say, no, I disagree, I'm going to do it this way. So that's generally the approach we take.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Sandeep and Bryan's point about as a consumer, you shouldn't feel that extra layer of AI. But to Michael's point about asking the users how you want the data to be presented, because in AI's generation, you get so much data overload. Within a snap of finger, you get 10 statistics, 10 metrics. You don't want to share all of it. So to Michael's point, it actually becomes very critical and the human actually feels more involved in the entire process of building the trust when you ask them, okay, do you want to present this information? So that's actually a good way to adopt tech and start investing in AI tools that we have, but there's still a lot of cultural barriers. And again, you guys have 3 different niches. Sandeep serves mostly the architect and the design side of things. Bryan does mostly post-construction owners and developers. Michael, you do mostly construction execution timeline. So what are some of the cultural barriers that you've seen? If you could share some examples.
I have not seen many, because again, the experience for at least from a customer standpoint, right? Like the end customer is getting the same thing they've always gotten. They're getting a licensed professional, delivering drawings like they always have. So they're doing it faster and they're making your design better. So I have not yet found someone be unhappy about that. What I will say is that obviously, because my last company was a SaaS company, right? The one thing that I learned from that, and I decided I would never do again, is make people learn new things. To your point, like that was the only lesson. I had to say, it's like, no, if you're gonna learn something new, no, do not learn anything new. So yeah, there's not really been too many barriers externally. Heck, even internally, like people are excited. Like our whole team is like, yeah, we're doing something that's never been done in the world before. Let's go. So no.
Yeah. Architecture and robot security a little different. We provide more consistent and effective security than traditional guarding would. We are providing a solution that is safer for everyone, right? Like we don't have guns drawn. The worst thing that's gonna happen is a little piece of robot's gonna get messed up. Who cares? And we're doing it at half the cost. Like this should be everywhere, right? There's a reason that when you read books, like it's like sci-fi books, they're always talking about, oh, the future of robot security is gonna be everywhere. It will one day. But where we are today, there isn't ready for adoption. You know, we talked to Jamestown early on. They see the vision. Their CEO invested in our last round, but they're like, we're not going to put this on our property. It's going to make our customers feel uncomfortable that we have robot security around here. It's not going to feel good. And so we're going to the places that have crime today, that have a need, that they're like, we don't care that it feels icky. We're willing to use it, and that's construction sites that are in, I will just say, take an east-west line, and it's 15 minutes south and southeast of here, where you have people investing in historically underdeveloped areas, and it's active multifamily sites. You've got really passionate owners of garden-style apartment complexes generally that are investing in these communities with primarily there's a lot of single mothers with kids there. And they're investing in those communities and turning around these communities. And they're like, whatever it takes to make this a safer community, we're willing to try it. And so those are our adoptions. We think in 5 years it'll be different. It'll be like what drones were 10 years ago. It was icky when they were flying overhead. One day that'll be with security. We're not there yet.
A couple different things that I've learned over the years. Originally, when we were coming out with a product, there was the world in which I viewed as an analyst, and then there was the world in which the customers viewed as project controls teams, schedulers, and whatnot. And that was primarily who we were, selling to and through. The ultimate goal with our product is to get full visibility on analytics across the organization, which to me is generally the approach that most companies with project controls teams take. But there was a very fragmented world of how things get analyzed. So originally when we came out, we had a certain set of analytics with no sort of customization on how you can configure this process to your needs to get the data that you're used to working with. So one thing that we did over time was work with those customers to figure out, well, what could we do to align with the way in which you analyze data or configure the system the way that you want it configured to get the analytics that you're used to. So that was one area that we focused on, is how do we make this much more configurable, because different companies look at data different ways. The other area that we were a little challenged in, and still are, is when you start to present these analytics to the site teams. One of the biggest challenges I've seen in construction is that actually causes problems is over-optimism bias on plan going forward. So impacts happen, changes get made to the schedule. People then believe in those changes and manage forward, but almost to their detriment. They get to a point where the project's not really going as well as they think it is, but they don't really want to have those conversations. So we saw some challenges with, the PMs and supers of the world, in that they didn't want this data to be apparent because they just wanted to keep working and hope that things would work out. And what the executives wanted was much more visibility and getting much more ahead of the curve of future risk. So what we've ended up doing with that is learning how to train people at the site level, understanding that the problem that we're talking about, that when projects get too infeasible from the schedule's perspective, that's actually a pain point for you on the last, we'll call it 30-40% of the job. And it's not fun, it's stressful, and it's, it makes you work weekends, it makes you work late nights, it gives you stress beyond belief. And if you just follow a process of analytics that you can communicate internally and externally about, it starts to alleviate that stress. So we've gotten much better at getting site teams to be willing to see the truth. And that's where we're really honed in on these days, on just making objective analytics become the centerpiece of discussion, as opposed to sweeping things under the rug and hoping. And we've noticed a big change when an organization does get a leadership team that's really okay with forcing accountability at the project level, and those teams start to embrace this information. They start to have much better outcomes and much better lifestyles. So that's what we've worked through.
I love how all three of them have different perspectives, and that kind of also leads into, for having a good adoption, you need to have a proper business model. And I know I'll pick on Sandeep. She had a SaaS platform before, and now she's moved into a service platform. If the trend now with AI, you build a SaaS platform. So curious to hear, Sandeep, from your perspective, what were some of the things that you saw was different when you compare both of those?
Yeah, so it was very simple. SaaS was great for our space, already did it, already grew it to be as big as it could be, and we ran out of market because there were no more architects left that we could sell it to, which is a wonderful problem to have, but it's still a problem because we had still not IPO'd, which is very much my ambition, because there was just not that big of a market. Services, on the other hand, I feel like we have significantly more control. And with something like architecture, I don't think a software can solve a problem because it's a workflow problem. It's a software paired with what you do with the software. And when comes in what you do with software, I have to teach someone something. And we're back at problem number one. I cannot teach someone something. People are going to do things the way that they're going to do it. So to kind of solve both of those problems together, we become a services business. On the flip side, obviously, historically, services have been very yucky. I mean, we're venture-backed. It used to be considered gross. Like, oh my gosh, your services, that is not good. If you're gonna go try to raise a round of capital, the multiples would not be great. That said, today, what we're doing and what we started doing 2 years ago has become a common slang in Silicon Valley. It's called full stack AI services business, which is what we are, because it's a significantly bigger market, because you're not just selling into the software budget, you're owning the whole piece of the pie. And you can solve the problem that much better and not run into adoption challenges, because it's not like if you're a developer, like I was talking to the CTO over at Avalon Bay, I'm not saying, hey, teach everyone in your team to learn this software so they can do it themselves. That's not a natural motion. So I just think that it's a significantly better pathway for the business that I'm building now and the problem that I'm solving now.
Michael, on your end, on the flip side?
Yeah, so now we've been in market for 6 years. One of the first things I learned about pricing and packaging is you really want to hone in on where the value proposition is. In construction, it's the project. You know, every one of those every single project is its own value prop, its own risk analytics threshold for you. So we decided that we would do a SaaS model, but it would be a project-based pricing model. And the reason we chose project-based is because we knew that if we limit it to the number of users and go a user-based model, then the companies that need this information to be broadcasted and to become the centerpiece of discussion are going to have very few people logging in. If we really want to be a company that is leveraging data to the betterment of the industry, we need to have more people communicating about that at the site team, at the management level, at the executive level, and even over to owners and subcontractors. So we've adopted a project-based pricing model where it is a subscription basis, and that's because different projects can be different lengths of time, but they're a long, drawn-out process. And when one project completes, we can archive that data, leverage that data for learning, and then slide the next project in. And keep a certain bandwidth of projects being analyzed at one point in time. But really the issue that I wanted to overcome was the lack of ability to broadcast the information effectively and communicate about it. So that's why we adopted the process we did.
Bryan, you got some commentary on that?
No, I think that I've got a lot from Sandeep's approach. Like, we could sell the robots to security guard firms that could implement it, or we could sell the software and they buy the robots. There's a bunch of different ways that we could not be a services business today. We can move so much faster. We can build the product that we need to build to get to market faster while delivering quality for our clients. We can decide when we want to make that AI investment that's going to be really costly, and I'll tell you, like, we can wait. Like, every single month that we wait on certain AI projects, the open source community has made 2 months of progress. So like it's kind of like that. So that's why we take a service-based approach. We're kind of fortunate that we're in the technology, security technology space where they're used to paying upfront for a year. And that really benefits our business as well.
I think one other barrier that I see is, so I work in operations. I take demos of a lot of construction tech softwares. I love it, and I want to get started. And guess what? We're going to do an IT process, and that might run you months. And I'm pretty sure you guys would have some hot takes on it. One of the famous ones is the SOC 2 compliance that pretty much all companies require to do the IT protection through. So, Bryan, you're smiling, so let's start with you.
So Sid, where are we gonna start our pilot, man? Huh?
Cameron's the guy.
Cam? We just signed with Grassfield and Gorey a couple weeks ago, man. They didn't care that we weren't SOC 2 compliant. We're not interfacing with any of their systems, man. It's just gonna depend on the client. We know that we want to get Coca-Cola, UPS, but we're just waiting to get that SOC 2 once a customer is signed up. We'll tell them we don't have it now. We'll go to the places in your business that you don't care about it, you don't have any sensitive information, and we'll get it when you pay us to get it.
Yeah, we do sell most successfully to the largest construction organizations out there, particularly because they have, for years, put processes in place for doing data analytics to support project controls, and they've also really learned and understood that schedule data is very useful. So what we originally started selling out in the market, we were focused on, really plugging into the biggest and the best organizations that had subject matter expertise. And it became very clear, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, that was part of the process, and we needed to get past that objection. So we invested in it. We've invested in ISO, we've invested in SOC 2, now we're getting our FedRAMP approval as well. So I stand strongly by that, just particularly because of the process and the change that has existed, because I'll say 5 years ago we didn't have to deal with that issue. But it does make sense for us today. Now that we're moving more into the middle market, and on the owner's side, there's certainly middle market companies that don't even know what SOC 2 means. But nonetheless, when you're selling to the largest organizations in a time like we see today, with so many different technologies, and now they have innovation teams and IT requirements and data security issues, and we do take data security very, seriously, we just went ahead and said, let's go, let's get these requirements taken care of. And one thing I'll also say is, as we learn through all of the types of sales that we do, we do study what are the things that are slowing down the deals. And one thing that you had mentioned before is, how do we get into a pilot? One of the ways that we've really, had a lot of success from was being very willing to put, our time and our money where our mouth is and give a 2-month out clause. If somebody wanted to pilot it and they wanted to move forward and they weren't necessarily sure if it was going to work in their organization, we've given them the ability to back out within 2 months if they want to. So that's been very favorable on our end as well.
So talking about pilot.
Sorry, quick question. I feel like I already know that many people take that 2-month out.
Oh yeah.
Oh, people did.
Well, why? No, how many people actually?
Like, did it? Like, we're like, okay, no, that was great. We're actually not going to do it.
We had to get a little bit smarter. We had to say, okay, well, first of all, if you're going to do this pilot and you're going to sign this deal, then you do need to show up at the training meetings. Like, this isn't about kicking tires, because if you don't, then we're still at least going to charge for time. But the other piece that was very interesting to me was that it alleviated a lot of the red tape that you need to go through with legal, as well as getting, even the young person who's interested in purchasing this software needs to go get 4 or 5 other people to basically sign off on it. But we give them 2 months, and what we noticed was, I think we had about 12.5% cancel rate, but of the 7 of 8 companies that move forward, some of them would expand. So, like, right off the bat. So we noticed that we're actually making more money that way, and it's okay to lose one once in a while, but if the others are expanding because they had that chance to learn and didn't feel as though they are putting their neck out to go try something, it ends up working out in our favor. And I think that has to do with the fact that we are very, very confident with our product.
So I'll be right back. I need to go change some contracts that are out there. No, that's so smart. How do you get them to say yes? Is the hardest thing.
Yeah, actually, I've taken a lot of demos, and not a lot of people are actually willing to do it a couple of months. So I think that's a good strategy. Talking about pilots, without talking about money, at the end of the day, we ask, okay, how much is it going to cost? So return on investments in construction tech is not similar to what we see in consumer tech. You would actually have a pilot running for 6 months for the entire project, 1 year, whatever. And the question we ask is, to Michael's point, you've got to show some training records and whatnot. How do you quantify it? And as an end consumer, you would have dealt with a lot of your clients. What are some of the things that you would suggest? Like, these are some of the metrics which you could track to justify the return on investment. Michael, I'll start with you.
Well, we have a series of metrics that we summarize at the project level that enable us to see risk in different lights. I mean, number 1 is project health. Number 2 is schedule quality. Number 3 is schedule performance index, and number 4 is compression. We also have the ability to aggregate that information and look at it across, the entire company, as well as various business segments and whatnot. So generally, when we work with a customer, our ultimate goal is to provide them with a system that enables them to get projects done on time, on budget, and keep them out of court. Those metrics are drivers to risk, like schedule quality being poor. You're going to have probably more challenges. If you're not progressing the project as planned, you're probably going to have more challenges. If you're over compressing the job till too late in the job, you're probably going to end up in claim. So we want to aggregate these metrics at the highest level, but we also want to be able to cut and slice it at different, different segments or different teams or different project types, whatever it may be. And we want to look at progress and performance for what it is and make sure that there's improvement. Now, it's a hard sell to say that, at the end of a 2-year project that SmartPM really came in and helped you get it done on time. But it is an easier thing to talk about when you can start to see aggregated data and look at historic data, which sometimes we work with some of our customers on. Let's look at how you were performing. Let's look at now how you're performing. Let's start to understand from the teams, how do they feel about progress and performance, and ultimately route it back to what's your average delay previously and what's it now. Sometimes it takes a little time, but generally, after we get up and running with a customer, we are having those executive discussions.
Right?
Yeah, we have one customer that was not a customer here at ECI Group, wonderful multifamily developer. They operate in really nice communities in the suburbs. That's where they build. There's no crime, so they don't hire security guards, so they don't need us. We never had a successful sale where they aren't hiring security guards. That's where we are, and we come in and we say, hey, day one, you're gonna save 50%. And so there is that immediate ROI. We're now starting to see other ROI opportunities that are gonna bring us up market over time, we hope. One of which is you talk to a site super and how many phone calls did you get at 2 a.m. or project manager from a questionable camera system? Guess what? We have a dog that can go talk to that person, that subcontractor that decided to show up at 4 a.m. to clear the septic tank. It's not an emergency. You don't need to wake up. Don't worry about it.
Every time the motion happens, you get pinged.
Yeah. EarthCam, some others that are Atlanta-based, like you're getting called a lot, and these people need to sleep. So that's part of the Brassfield pilot that we're hopefully going to be tracking. The other one that they're really interested in is sites visits from regional management. So how many times on a site are their regional managers having to go out and visit a site, the ROM? If we can reduce that versus another typical site is another ROI opportunity that we're trying to track.
Yeah, for us, the first time we meet someone, we already add value. I believe in not adding value to a prospect. So if we add value, they already like us. Instead of saying to someone, hey, we use AI to do architecture, we're so awesome, we're better, we're faster, we actually show that. One of the standard things that you need for any project that's about to get started or ever be built is a feasibility study. So there's a client, as an example, it was a multifamily in Florida, and they were like, here's the site, here's roughly what we're trying to do. We need about 50 stories of multifamily. There's some retail at the bottom. Help us figure out the best and highest use of this land. And typically this would take, 4 weeks, and in some cases, $10,000 to $15,000 to pay an architect to do something. We give you that because we can in 2 days for free. We're like, here is where we show you the tech leverage that we have. Then we go from there and talk about our timeline to delivery, our ability and speed to iteration, and our ability to be the most competitive architect for that timeline. And we let you shop it around. You go find someone who can do it better, faster, and more competitively than us. And that rarely happens. So that's typically how we find the ROI, because it's immediate for the client.
I love how she breaks down is show your value upfront, and I think as consumers or as end users, that's what you want to see. That's what pulls you into the product, right? You wouldn't have a second demo if you didn't like them off the bat. So, good point. I want to close out this session by asking what the future of AI is in construction. And it's funny how we used to always, when we talk about future, we used to say, what's the future in the next 5 to 10 years? I got to reframe my question because AI is developing so fast. What's the future in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think even 3 to 5 years is too long, to be completely honest. I was talking to someone. I was not around when they call it World Wide Web came about. I was not around, but the person I was talking to today was. And this person's the CTO of one of the leading multifamily development firms, and he said, I was like, where do you think we are? And I really liked what he said, so I'm just gonna copy paste because it was so good. He said, I was around when that happened, and in year 1, we all thought we could use the internet in some cool way, but by year 3 to 5, we were like, what were we doing then? That made no sense. I still feel that we're gonna say that in 2028 about 2025, like, what were we doing then? That was really cute, huh? We're totally gonna do it a different way. I truly believe that we're just still so shallow with all of these things that I've said, that Bryan said, that Michael said, all the benefits that we've talked about. I actually believe that in 3 to 5 years, the magnitude of the ways that it transforms our lives are greater than anything that have been spoken, and I just don't even think that I can imagine that far out. Like 3 to 5 years is too long.
Yeah, I was an AI strategy consultant for a few years at Accenture, which we're #1 AI strategy group in the world. And what that meant 5 years ago, it wasn't AI, it was machine learning. Like it means something totally different today than what we were telling people was the future then. So I reiterate Sandeep's point. When it comes to robotics, I think we also, we're expecting humanoids to be everywhere, and we're expecting them to be like 2 years from now. That's at least 8 years away, I'll say.
I saw a kitchen. I'm ready for it. It's where a robot makes your food. I am so ready.
All right, Sandeep, I've got a 6-week-old. I really want a humanoid to change that diaper, feed the bit. I mean, like, whoo, that would be great. Put her to bed, rock? Oh my God. Anyways, I'd say wheeled robots, purpose-built robots are going to be what causes the adoption over the next period of time. I will say that when it comes to robots, I think that we're going to see a lot of AI cameras connecting to robots and making them useful. I think that's going to happen on a lot of construction sites. You know, I could see feeding into SmartPM like some sort of robot solution that is going, or drone that has cameras, and guess what? You have even more up-to-date data on everything that's feeding your SmartPM solution.
Yeah, I agree. It's difficult to think 2-3 years away, but I do know that I think it will become a common thing in the built world to be leveraging an AI sidekick to do a lot of the legwork to getting to answers quicker. I do also agree that there will be, at least in the project management world, a lot more information flowing through with a lot more recommendations that people can choose from in terms of, you know, how many resources do we need and at what point, and, you know, how much time is it really going to take, and what are the risk issues, and what does that mean for the future of the job after that, to start helping people, you know, really understand, you know, making much better decisions that are a lot more efficient. I do think there's a precursor to that, though. I think that what we'll notice over the next couple of years is a lot more focus on data integrity, because it has to be. If you're going to rely on the data, you've got to have high data integrity, and you've got to have the right controls in place to be able to trust that data, to be able to inform you on better decision making. But I do think, you know, 3 years down the road in this industry, you know, every single PM, every single super, and probably everybody in between on the site as well as the home office is going to be leveraging it to streamline their day. And we will see a great impact on the efficiency of these projects due to it.
I think in addition to all of that, what will certainly happen is what's happened with any technology, is that I think we will all care significantly more about times like these where we actually interact with other humans. And it's not through Zoom bubbles, it's not an AI technology we're talking to. I do think that as we go through all of the change and transition that is ahead of us, it's inevitable, it's coming, genie's out of the bottle, I don't think it's going back. But I do think that it only further signifies the importance, like every time we do talk to people, there's just more humanity, and I think there's something cool about that.
Thank you, all three of you, for sharing your insights. I want to give a quick shout out to Cameron, Becca, JC, for helping set this up. Again, thanks to our panelists for sharing some insights. This is a good opportunity to just connect, learn from each other as we try to push the industry. And we will try to keep host more of these events. So thanks again for, choosing us over Beyonce.
I think there's time. Thank you guys for putting this on. I'm excited to see what this turns into. I mean, like, we need this here.